welcome to another episode of Inside. I'm Dom Harbin. I'm joined by Scenario Neil and Bath fangirl Jack Milmore. This week we're joined by the man who does this. This is Mr. Olly Barkley. How are you this evening, Ollie?
Good, mate. Good, thank you. Getting through end of another very long week.
Yeah, agreed. We had a brief chat just before about the lockdown. What have you been doing to keep yourself busy?
I'm in property, so it's kind of like it's business as usual, really. I mean, things have slowed down pretty much in terms of like buying and conveyancing, but as you guys will know, like it's as Neil just said, construction is cracked on. Really, it's flying along. It's just taking a bit longer to do stuff. So we've generally been carrying on a few renovations, acquired a few bits and pieces, but generally there's a lot going on, but it's just whatever's going on is moving very, very slowly. So work-wise, mainly that. I'm still doing quite a bit of charity work at the moment with a friend of mine, and we have a foundation with, which has been a really good use of our time. But other than that, I've been trying to stay clear of Netflix, trying to stay clear of that trap, because I can binge with the best of them. Mate, keeping routine, just trying to find fun little fun days in the abnormalities of life at the moment. But other than that, cannot wait for whenever. When is it? End of March, mid-April, June 21st, whichever day.
So many dates, isn't there?
Any of them, mate.
Just keep it coming, yeah.
No,
I think that day will go down in the history of sessions of all time.
It needs to be a bank holiday.
I definitely think they are relieving the pressure of the NHS, because that weekend it's going to go tits up, isn't it?
Massively.
It's going to go tits up that weekend.
Well, yeah,
definitely. So just touch on your career. Obviously, I mean, how hard was it to start your career at, probably one of the biggest clubs in the world? Coming as a Bath fan myself, Bath.
Mate, it was. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't actually want. No, that's not true. I didn't definitely know I wanted to play rugby until I was about 17. I went to Colston's in Bristol and had a scholarship to go there, and ended up being offered like a 3-year contract at Bath when I was in my final year with doing A levels, and I actually wasn't totally sure I wanted to take it. I've always wanted to travel, and I knew that if I went straight to Bath, that would kick travelling to the curb. And I really, really wanted to be I don't know why I wanted to be one, because I've done bits and pieces of it now, and it's shocking. But I wanted to be a teacher. I'm not knocking teachers; they're a very important part of our society and of the next generation. But I just can't believe I wanted it as badly as I did. But I did want it, and it actually put a potential spanner in the works. Anyway, my coach just convinced me otherwise, and ended up going to Bath. But it was actually quite a easy transition for me, in the way that I was a bit cheeky. I went to Andy Robinson and said that I would sign the contract if he allowed me to basically go away for a year.
Wow!
And he looked at me in the meeting. My mum was in the corner. I didn't have an agent then, and his face, he can frown with the best of them, but he just looked at me for about 30 seconds, didn't say a word, and I shat myself. Because he's an ominous man when you're an 18-year-old kid trying to get a contract at one of the biggest clubs. I'm still scared of him now, actually. And he agreed to it. He actually agreed to it. Yeah, so I trained in the first team of October, and then travelled through South Africa and Australia with my mates, and then ended up in New Zealand, and then played for like a local club in New Zealand that an old Canterbury Crusaders player called Angus Gardner organised for me.
Yeah.
And then stayed there till June, when I went on the England tour, and then came back to Bath, and then that's when it really started. But the introduction, it was quite nice to sort of go in and then come out, go travelling for a bit, and then come back. It was quite a unique setup, but I'm really grateful they allowed me to do that, because if I hadn't taken that, then it would have been, the next time I would have been able to do something like that would have been when I retired, which was 3-4 years ago.
And obviously, you had an amazing 7 years at Bath. Then you decided you wanted to kick your rugby on a bit and go to a better club and go down the road to Gloucester. What was the decision process there?
Neil's a Gloucester fan, as you can probably tell.
The decision was like at the time, like we had a really good year that year at Bath, the year that I left, and I just really felt at the time that they were, I mean, everyone says that I went for cash. I didn't. I actually would have taken more money to stay at Bath. That Bath offered me more money than Gloucester did. I just felt with their stadium, they were one of the only clubs in the league at that point that had sort of serious stadia, and just their squad they were building. And Dean Ryan is a great coach. Some of the players they had there, at the time, and the money that they were willing to spend on strengthening the squad. I thought it was something that was on the verge of, an Exeter or on the verge of a Saracens. And I went there, and in all honesty, I probably didn't. I still had my house in Bath, and they rented a flat in Cheltenham, so I was going back and forth. So I probably never really committed to the whole thing as much as I should have, in hindsight. Yeah. And found it really, really difficult. Actually, I found it quite hard. I missed Bath. I love the club there. I love one of the most passionate clubs I've ever played at, let alone been contracted to. And it was a tough year, man. It was a tough year. Like Dean, I know Dean had a really hard year because sadly, the mother of his children passed away in that year, and he found that quite difficult. And then that affected how the squad was managed, the coaches, and I didn't play well as well. Lots of players weren't happy, and it wasn't, as you remember, mate. It wasn't a great year for the club that year. I remember we ended up coming ninth or 10th with like a squad that should only have been one or two, really, the players that we had at that point in time. And still some great mates there, and I will look upon that club and what it has very fondly. But for that, it wasn't a massively enjoyable year from my point of view. But that was never anything to do with the club. I think that was a lot to do with probably I could have stepped into that space a lot more in a far more committed way than I did. And I think the club was, about 11 guys left that year who were in contract.
Wow.
Which is pretty unique for a club, So there were people that are unhappy there, but a great club, and it's I would always, whenever I see Gloucester winning on the team, in the results list, I always feel a bit happy for them because they're that I know that very well that when the supporters leave that stadium on a Saturday afternoon, if they win or if they lose, it shapes their week.
Yeah.
And you can only want the best for those sorts of supporters,
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what's going on at the moment with Cipriani leaving, what's going on, but a great club. I just wish it had gone better for me and the club together.
Yeah,
definitely.
Do you see? Sorry, just a very quick introduction question. I mean, obviously, Gloucester. I think we're lucky this season. They've announced that obviously no one's going down. I think that's lucky for Gloucester this season. We're having an awful run of events. I mean, we've got a hell of a team. Obviously, we've had Sips leave. Things like that. Do you see a lot of other clubs maybe struggling from this, from the situation we're in, or is it just business as normal, really?
That's a good question. I'm probably not as involved in the day-to-day running of. I know I still have mates that are at Bath, and I still have a handle that goes on at Bath. But I know that obviously a lot of the clubs at the moment are handling their squads in two bubbles to try and restrict the amount of damage that one collective squad can do if it catches COVID.
Yeah.
And that brings with it obviously issues and problems. But I think what you managing a squad's hard enough without COVID, let alone for a manager, for a coach, for whoever, for a director of rugby. And I think what you'll probably see now is the teams that are the top two or three will always be okay because they have enough depth there and enough buy-in and confidence to be able to put any 25, 30 players into a first team and then perform to a high level. But I think where you see like the managers really earn their money is in that middle block where they've really got to manage their squad successfully and be a bit brave in places, be smart, have a tremendous amount of foresight. and luck as well. You know, like these guys get injured, you're fucked. So there's no way out of that. So there'll be a lot of luck involved, and I think probably not doing relegation is probably the right decision. I think, given what's going on. Yeah, man, it's Jesus. I said to a mate the other day, like just rugby or anything really. I was just like, fuck, we're going to look back in people when we're pushing up daisies in 300 years' time. People will look back on this moment we're living through, and it will be one of the most iconic eras and one of the most iconic eras in history. We're living through it as adults, which is madness. You know, like look back to how people were living during the war, and we'd taken it all in our stride because it's generally what our generation try and do. Yeah. But it's madness to think that there's professional sports and businesses and like living through this time now. It's pretty, when you take a step back from it and look at it, it's pretty mad.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. But in terms of, obviously you played for quite a fair few teams. Now, obviously Bath, Gloucester, then back to Bath, then Racing Metro, Grenoble, Scarlets, London Welsh. Out of all those teams, I'm going to ask a completely, really hard to answer question now. What's the one game that sticks out still gives you a lump in your throat, still gets the hairs going up on the back of your neck?
That's a good question. Club games. I mean, we played some really, really great games at Twickenham with Bath. They're always really special because we always get like 60,000 there. So playing in that environment with your clubmate, your teammates, your clubmates is hard to beat. Good question. I mean, beating Munster at Racing Metro when my first ever game for their Stade de France was pretty special, considering I spoke no French and me and Max Machino, the scrum half, like were communicating with hand signals the whole game. I don't know how he pulled that off. I've been there 2 weeks.
Did you win?
We won, yeah.
Jeez, fair play.
I'm sorry.
Fair play to you, mate. Fair play.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good one, but I still didn't speak any French for months after that. But
did you ever learn fully?
I had to, mate. Yeah, I was in meetings for the first 8 weeks as a fly half, not having a clue what anyone was saying, and I mean, one of the most frustrating moments of my career is that first couple of months when you can't bond with your teammates really, because you can on a tactile level, but not on a conversational level or understanding the game understanding, and not then also like not being able to go into a huddle during training or games for the first probably 3 months realistically, and be able to communicate what I needed from people and what I wanted from forwards and calls and stuff like that. That was like, fuck, I'll go home knackered, absolutely like mentally knackered from just trying to find ways of steering the team, communicating with people outside of like just natural tongue. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So it forced me to. I'd had lessons like 4 times a week for about an hour, and I was a student of French for like 5 months, and after 5 months, I became pretty good, and then it was far more enjoyable when that happened.
That's it. It's always better to know the moves, isn't it? Especially at 10.
What a statement, Neil.
It's quite pivotal, isn't it? I mean, as a former 10, amongst many other positions, obviously didn't play quite as high a standard as yourself, Ollie, but Dom, I'm surprised you didn't come in with a darky comment then, Dom.
Well, I don't have the effort for it, to be fair, mate. Every week it is
Gloucester
now.
Old Boys.
Every week. Gloucester Old Boys are going to just shame you on this. But anyway, so from Racing to Grenoble, so what sort of prompts that move? How does we talk to all these different players every week. What sort of prompts a transfer? Like, do they make contact with you, or does your agent put feelers out? Like, what is the process?
So, Racing Metro, I was a medical joker, which means I was covering Juan Hernandez, who had a knee injury at the time, and then I had a deal whereby we'd have a conversation at the end of the year, and I would either stay on at an agreed salary or I would leave, but we'd have a conversation depending on who wanted what. Yep. I actually would have stayed, but they were buying people in. John Wisniewski was coming back from injury, so there was no place for me there. So I was considering retiring at that point, going back to London and like trying, and then just going into other stuff. And then late doors, Grenoble came in, and Bernard Jackman was down there, the Irish coach, who was great, really good, very, very knowledgeable, learned all his stuff at Leinster, so he had a lot of great systems and processes, pardon me, from there. Sorry, just necked a beer. I do this thing with my mates, and if we're a group, and if comes in the group and someone taps next to beer and taps the screen, then everyone's got to do it. And I'm just
also, we should bring it into the Dodgers bar.
Yeah.
And then from there, like the club will contact you, your agent will go out, and your agent will then find out and see what's out there for you.
Yeah.
And then, mate, it's that's from there really. I was quite lucky in the sense that at Bath, there was never really, or for the years I was in England, there was never really that conversation. It was just, I would always be approached by Bath 3 months before the end of the season, 6 months before the end of the season, and say, look, what we need to do, like how long do you want? And that would be very, very quick conversations between me and Bath. And then and Gloucester was quick as well. And the slowest conversations I actually had with the 2 contracts in my final year. The reality is, when you get older, you're just not going to be wanted as much. You know, that's just reality of it. Unless you are a top player, a top player, like you're the top 2%, your Farrells, your Itogis, and your guys that remain really injury free and can sustain that super high level of performance for into their mid 30s, you're going to get to a stage where you're just not wanted as much. You're not going to be paid as much. You're not going to be find it hard, and I always knew that, and I accepted that, and that's why I think I found transitioning out of rugby probably a little bit not easy, but easier than some people I know. Just because I loved it, but I never felt like it defined me. I love the game and I'm grateful for it, and I've got amazing friends and experiences from it. But I don't think it ever defined me, and I always knew I wouldn't be wanted one day, and I was comfortable with that. You know, it doesn't. Sometimes it's hard when you're like, salaries get slashed, and some people that comes don't want you, and your agent calls back and says, mate, actually, still nothing out there, which happened the last couple of years. But I look at it, I was fortunate to have 14 years where that didn't happen to me, So
sure.
I'll take the 2 when I was scratching around.
Yeah.
No, definitely. So when you moved to London Welsh, that was a bit of a funny, well, not funny time period for them, but they were signing a lot of sort of big names at the time. Was it Piri Weepu? Was that your era at London Welsh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who else was there? Was it Tom May, or was he?
Tom May was there. Chris Alafia was there from London Irish.
So what was that like? Because that's obviously a team. So not with a huge sort of Premiership games under their belt, but had all of these superstars then coming in and sort of integrating with their original sort of squad, if that makes sense.
Mate, all the guys that came in were actually very, very down to earth. Piri is incredibly down to earth. Very knowledgeable bloke. Very he settled in within a couple of weeks. Like a lot of the All Blacks that I've met, they're all very similar. They're all incredibly grounded, and he settled in straight away. Like he was one of the boys for the last few years. And they're an awesome bunch of lads. So that actually the team actually got on very, very quickly. And being where we are in London is obviously cracking social. So you're always doing stuff together, which is key for a team, and particularly a new team. We could have done some really, really cool stuff there. We knew we were never going to be mid-table, but we wanted to try and survive and stay up. And I think there were some issues where, I don't really feel like the coaching staff probably wasn't as I don't think it was really ready for the Premiership, to be honest with you. Having played in the Premiership, I don't think that Premiership's tough, man. It's tough. There are smart coaches, smart players, there are disciplined systems, and you need to be smart, and you need to build your strategy and your squad over the course of the year, and you need to build your strategy around your players. And you need to be, if you are the top four and you have a good squad, then it's like you can go to the races. But if you're the bottom 4 or 5, you've got to be really smart.
Yeah.
Especially when the winter comes, when these big top 4 will just pile you through the forwards, and they'll kick you to death. And you know, when you're depleted with injuries as well. So I don't think we had that ability to do that in the coaching team at the time. That's not to say that it was all the coach's fault, because we go on the field and we play the game. But I do strongly feel like at the time it was difficult, because there wasn't probably that leadership and that understanding of what it took to succeed in the Premiership over the course of the season.
No, definitely. Well, just touching on that, obviously finished up at London Welsh. You now mentioned previously you're doing a lot of charity work. Do you want to just talk to us about that? Give us the backstory on that.
Yeah, so a guy I used to play, we used to train with, actually. I never actually played with Ed Jackson, but Ed and Ed and I mean, honestly, this is, people like laugh when I say this, but we were never mates. We were never mates at Bath, you know. I was a bit older than him. We didn't really socialise together. And then when he came back to Bath after he broke his neck, I mean, if you were aware of it, Ed Jackson broke his neck, And Ed said to me, we started socialising more together and hanging out, and realised that we actually got on really, really well. And he said to me at one point, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to start this charity. I want to help people in my position that have suffered from either PTSD, repatriation out of the army, people that have suffered from like various injuries that have been given bleak prognoses about their recovery. He's incredibly mentally strong dude, and he wanted. It was actually. I'm not going to say it was easy for him, but he's like knocked it out of the park, and lots of people aren't going to do that. And he wanted to help those people. And he said to me, like, will you help me? And I was like, fuck yeah, I'd love to, man. I'd love to. So we designed a charity which was basically designed around 2 concepts. One was to take people away up the mountains and on explorations to raise money for the charity, but also take beneficiaries away up the mountains with support from people like breathing experts, yoga teachers, life coaches, like a support team around them that could help them structure and routine their recovery and try and give them a slightly more positive outlook on where they were going if they were struggling. And there's a strict process we go through to try and assess who that is and how we pick them. And the other one was we've been to 1,000 charity dinners, and they were all boring as shit, and we wanted to do something that was different. And so we created something called Beat, which was basically like a banquet with DJ. We would be paired chefs with DJs, and up and coming chefs, up and coming DJs, and then we put them in unique venues. And it's basically a big party with a bunch of tech music and a banquet in Long Hall. It's pretty cool. And we have circus performers there as well. So it's kind of like a nod to it's like a techie Cirque du Soleil banquet type thing. But we went to a club in Ibiza called Heart, and we loved it and just tried to recreate that basically because we just loved it. There was nothing like it in England. Okay. And those are the 2 sides of the foundation, and we received charity foundation status about 9 months now, so we're an official foundation. And awesome. I think in June we go to Iceland and take away our first collection of beneficiaries. So this year's been really good for us. We've went through a selection process and we picked about 6, and then we've got 2 going to Nepal, wow. 2 coming to Iceland, 2 going to Mont Blanc, and then we have a lot of stuff with them out there. Then we come back, and then we'll put support around them for the next 12 months. 12 months is the intensive part, and then they stay in this I don't want to say system, but they stay in our system for the next 2 years after that. So 3 years in total. Wow. And then we bring you guys on. But yeah, it's cool, man. It's great. It's I don't know if any of you guys follow Ed, but he's a pretty inspirational bloke, and he doesn't. he definitely leads by example. He flings a gun over his shoulder. He works his nuts off. He never moans, and he has every right to to feel probably I wouldn't say hard done by, but disadvantaged, and he doesn't. He just cracks on with it, and he's super positive. And sometimes I just want to tell him, shut the fuck up and stop being so positive, because it makes you feel like he's got a moment for them.
Makes you reflect on yourself.
I'm sorry?
It makes you reflect on yourself, doesn't it? Think,
Exactly. Sometimes, like, I'm a pretty positive bloke, but sometimes you just want to have a fucking moan, You just want That's the only way you can just fucking bitch about someone or something. But he's great, man, and he's awesome, and like, being around him and being involved in it it's been really great.
Awesome. That's amazing.
That's great work.
To hear.
Awesome.
Yeah. We'll wrap it up shortly. We did a thing, obviously Bath supporters known for their passion. I popped a little question in one of the Facebook groups earlier in this week. Did the same for Dave Atwood. I think you probably got a slightly nice response from poor old Dave. So I'll just read a few of these out now. Richard Knight, obviously huge Bath fan, asked, what are you doing Sunday? Can you play in the second row? Obviously, Bath struggling there at the moment. Does he have any secret regrets on his decisions during his rugby career, from Anthony Hart?
Not would be very secret, wouldn't it? If I put that on the podcast. Do I have any secret regrets?
I think he may be hinting at Gloucester there. I mean,
I
that's just bitterness out of anything else, I think.
Yeah, I don't regret that. It was a tough time, but I definitely don't regret that. One thing I think as I've got older, I've probably become far more. I always worked quite hard. I was quite proud of the fact that I was quite disciplined. But I think since leaving rugby and starting my own business and having more responsibility and accountability in life to just live and exist, I've become far more disciplined, and I manage my time better, and I'm probably a better human now. And I kind of wish that I had been the human I am now back in my career, because I think I would have done more.
Yeah.
I think when I played, I worked very hard, but I didn't. And I love the game, but there were things that I did which I probably wouldn't have done. Various, just how I conducted myself sometimes, and I think had I had the approach I have now to life back when I played, I think I would have done a lot more. But I love my time at playing, and I'm forever grateful for it. So that's probably the now not so secret regret.
Neil Capel ask him if he misses Wade Bridge Camels.
Neil Capel.
Yeah.
That's the club where I started, actually, in Cornwall.
Right, okay.
It was literally a cow field with a shed. Just the most spit and sawdust rugby club, and he was one of the. He was actually one of the guys from there, and like he was so annoying. He used to get knocked out every Saturday by his own teammates.
Wow.
Not on the pitch, on the bar afterwards. So,
Neil.
Yeah, Neil. Don't feel sorry for him, mate.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just checking him out now. Have you ever fancied a director of rugby role, Bath specifically? Obviously, bit of a tough time. Would you ever consider managing Bath?
Mate, I am not equipped to be a director of rugby. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and I think that role is tough in any club. I mean, your Bath, Gloucester's, Leicester's, Exeter probably now as well. Probably all those Bristol, all those West Country areas where rugby is everything.
Yeah,
that is a tough job, and it's. I think Stu Hooper has got a difficult job there, and I think Bruce Craig, who owns it, is not the easiest person to manage the club in terms to be. I mean, you have the players and you have Bruce, and then you have Stu, who I think is a great guy. I'm just not sure how much autonomy he has in that club, and I think, you know, if you put someone in a role to you pay someone good money who's the right man for the job to do a role, you let them do that role.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's happening at Bath at the moment. And I mean, I'm not in there, but you know, I know enough to know that there's probably pushing and pulling going on, and it makes me sad because they shouldn't be where they are in the league, and they're great. I still hold the club very, very dearly in my heart. I did, you know, had moments and memories there that I never thought I would have in a million years, you know, when I was a kid. So I wish them all the best, and I really hope that they sort themselves out, because it's just wrong than being down where they are in the league at the moment.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mid's not happy with that one.
Not happy.
Last couple, Bob Densley. But early in his career, Ollie was slated to play for Wales under-18 schools, but it didn't happen. I don't know if he means slated or maybe started, or maybe you were slated. I don't know.
Yeah, I was slated. Yeah. I was. So what I got a bit disillusioned with the England school system. Do you know what? I don't even know why. I'm embarrassed to say I don't even know why this happened. But I think the Welsh schoolboys and the Welsh school system in 21s were, when I was younger, were the bollocks. Like, they were really, really strong. My family is more Welsh than they are English. Like, my mother and my mother's side is incredibly very, very Welsh, very Welsh. Newport for her sins, and when they found this out, I don't know, it was mentioned in the newspaper article, I can't remember, but they contacted me and said, "Would you come and trial for the Welsh under-18s?" And I become disillusioned with the England system for some reason. I mean, it can't be that strong because I can't even fucking remember, so that's embarrassing. But anyway, I did, and it went quite well. The trial went quite well, and I got to the stage where I was selected to be in the Welsh under-18 squad, and then from there, you know, who knows what happened. But I ended up not doing that and playing for England under-18s, and then staying with England under-18s. And then when I went to do my first development session with England, I was like 18 years old, and I was in this development squad with like Lewis Moody, who else? Lewis Moody, Leon Lloyd, a bunch of other guys, and Jamie Noon, all these like young guys. They were older than me. I was like 18 years old, training with the England team, which was mental. And Andy Robinson called me up in the car on the way home and said, you know, what's the crack with this Wales thing? Because obviously once you play for Wales, like the senior team, then that is it. Like, you've got to wait 4 years. There's a bunch of other stuff. So he called me and said, "What's the crack with that? Is, are you going to commit to this?" And I was like, "Yeah, obviously, yeah, that's, you know, yeah, I'm here now." And then he got me on the tour 6 months later when I was like barely 19. So that's the Welsh story.
And then obviously the final one, which got a lot of attention. Do you think your best ever tackle was on a pitch invader dressed as Goldilocks?
I mean, I'm embarrassed to say, yeah, probably. And, there's a few reasons why I'm embarrassed. One was that he didn't even notice. He didn't even see it coming.
Yeah, it was a great tackle.
Two, he was dressed as a chick. And three, he was pissed out of his face as well. So, I mean, two of those three made the whole situation very one-sided.
No,
didn't you mention? I mean, we mentioned this before we started recording, but did you tell us the story that you actually knew the guy?
Yeah, like, I did when he came on the field. Like, he came on the field, and I was actually quite pissed off anyway, because we had lost the game at that point, and then we were waiting for a dead rubber kick to just miss. Didn't affect the game, so I was waiting there, pretty pissed off, and as he got closer to me, I was like, I recognised him. And it was Luke Footy from my brother's university, who I've like bumped into a few times, and Charlie was mates with, my brother. And I was like, fuck, yeah, I was like, it just felt good.
No, that's that's a little variety of Bath fans where their heads are at the moment. I think we'll just wrap up with a few trademark scenario questions from Neil. Hopefully, you got some good ones this week.
I've got a couple of questions I just want to jump in with before the scenarios. One that I've asked a few of our guests before, but it's always an interesting one for me. What, in your opinion, we'll keep it to the Premiership, but what would you say as an away player is the worst stadium to play at?
Sale comfortably.
Yeah, why is that?
I used to because it was Friday night and it was a long trip. Always bus. We used to stay at a place called Bredbury Hall usually as well, which was like party central. Nice. So you'd be in there and like, it would just be difficult. And then there'd be night games, you'd be in your room all day, and then you get there and it's narrow pitch, shitty weather, and they are a physical team, they batter you.
Yeah.
And, it was just, particularly when you were playing, there's a really mean slope on that pitch. Not the one they're at now, the one at, what was the previous, I forget the name of it. The stadium before they play at now was very one-sided on the slope. And when you were playing when you were playing up the slope, it was just the nightmare. I can remember a few games there where me and the boys just been like, just get 10 minutes from the end when we weren't going to just get on the pitch. Sale for sure.
Yeah, no, fair play. And what about was there any stadiums that you used to go to that the fans used to give you a particularly hard time? You like, used to maybe affect you playing in that sense, or maybe you just switch off as soon as the game starts? I mean, I don't know. Obviously,
other than the obvious one, Gloucester.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to mention it. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned that I'm a Gloucester fan, but yeah, obviously the Shed is I was alluding to. But I mean, are there any other stadiums
into the Shed podcast?
Yeah, we may as well. But are there any other stadiums where their fans can maybe be make a bit of a difference, like possibly the Shed? Are there any other stadiums that you think the fans may have a big influence?
I think Gloucester. Yeah, I mean, that can be quite an intimidating place to play. I think what helps there is that the one side is quite far away.
Yeah.
That takes a bit of pressure off that side. The Shed side is quite close. I actually quite like playing at Gloucester because of the width, and it's quite open, and so I actually like going to play there as an away player. I love pitches with width. So that negated the issue with the crowd.
Yeah,
not the issue, but the partisan nature of the Gloucester crowd. Mate, Exeter is a tough place to go just because you kind of feel the crowd's intensity as well, and they're a physical team. Even though it's big width, they're a very physical team, and you just feel like their supporters are so behind their team. You really feel it down there that they love their boys and they get behind their boys, and that is difficult to play a team when because they get so much from that. A lot like Bath actually. When Bath are playing well, when we have a good season, the boys are putting it in. Bath, we used to feel that. Really feel that. Whereas some clubs can be quite fair weather, but Exeter. And you definitely feel like their fans are definitely behind them, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, no, it's that's always interested me to see what from a player's point of view, obviously. Right, well, one more question before I jump into a couple of scenarios. Obviously, we've got the Six Nations again coming up on the weekend. Unfortunately, Scotland and France game's been postponed. I just want to get your thoughts on England-Wales, and particularly the selection recently and this week, and your thoughts on it, and what your thoughts on the game, particularly whether you think we'll win or whether Wales will. Sorry, there's about 6 questions in one there, wasn't there?
I have to be brutally honest with you here. I don't watch much rugby anymore.
Wow. Okay.
So I have not seen the England game, right. And I'll watch tomorrow's game because England Wales is always a doubter, but. So I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm talking about because I didn't see the game last week. I do know that obviously, like, I know Farrell's back at 12, and then they put 40 back to 10, haven't they? Which I think is definitely a case of a few of the Sarries boys struggling because of that lack of weekly intensity that they're not getting. With all due respect to the Championship, and it's tough to do that, to go from the Championship, with one man and his dog, and then go into an international game is difficult, and I think that's probably costing a few of their key players. Mate, I'm afraid that's all I've got in that situation.
That's more than I've got. That's what I have to pretend to know about rugby every week.
I haven't watched much international rugby. I haven't watched much international rugby. It stops there.
No worries. Right. Well, I've got a couple of Dom mentioned predictable scenarios, because we've started this one at the start of lockdown, and we've carried on all the way through since we're back in lockdown. Right. You have to be on lockdown with a player you've played with at some point in your career. You're in a 2-bedroom bungalow for 2 weeks. You can't go out at all. People are bringing you food. You have to spend 24 hours a day with this person. Who would make it an absolute living hell, and why?
I mean, I can think of a couple of people who are genuinely annoying, but I don't know if that's going to go down that well. But I can think of a few people that are mates of mine that I just love, but I also find irritating. I mean, have you had Dave Atwood on here?
Yeah, we had him on
Atwood, yeah.
a couple of weeks ago.
I love Dave, but he would be up there because he just talks about himself all the time.
Does he talk about himself in the third person? Dave Atwood is going to get a bowl of cereal.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. His nickname is Smugwood. Smuggers. So I mean, there is regularly stuff that comes out of his mouth which is sickening.
Brilliant. And who would make it a dream? Who could you just have 2 weeks with like that, no problem, and you'd still be best of mates at the end of it?
Oh mate, I'm very lucky to say there's a long list.
That's good.
A lot of great mates. I'm very good friends with David Flatman. He's a funny fucker. He would probably make. Yeah, he's a very close friend of mine, and he would. Other than nicking, I mean, as long as the portions of food were large enough and there was enough meat on hand, he could go through meat. I went to dinner at his about 2 months. This is a true story. I went to dinner at his about 2 months ago, and his girlfriend Freya wasn't in, so he made a chicken. That was it. That was our food. I don't know.
Just the chicken.
Just chicken.
No, nothing with it. Just
no ketchup.
Nice.
Chicken and ketchup.
Did you have to eat off the fork?
He gets given all these the big barbecues you've ever seen. He gets given all this lovely meat and stuff. So, I mean, he'd have dropped down dead in a matter of months, I reckon. All he does is eat meat.
It's not a bad way to go, though, is it? I mean,
no, death by meat. Yeah, mate, he will champion death by meat. He's definitely
brilliant. Right, who was always the person who got you in trouble when you out on the drink? What whenever you saw someone turn up on the, when you were in a club session out on the night out, who do you think? Oh, for fuck's sake, he's here again! Shit, like.
I mean, I'm not. I think this is quite a funny question to ask me because most people would say me.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Most people would say me when I was playing, but I do like a party.
Don't we all?
Who outside of a few we had a pretty loose bunch, but I think I was the worst. Oh god, I think I was the worst. I mean, there's a few guys that have alter egos.
Right.
Oh god, do you know what? Like everyone, Michael Lippman. Oh
yeah.
If he was out on the pitch, he would go for it, and he was fairly unpredictable.
In what way? Give us an example.
he did this. He would do this. He'd do this thing where he would like. You'd regularly see him with his top off in the club, right? And he'd be this thing where he'd pull out ice, like fresh ice, and chuck it in people's foreheads. So it was hard to find people with like cut foreheads from like fresh ice. He cut my forehead once with this ice, nice all red. I mean, Jack. Do you remember a guy called Jack Cuthbert? Jack Cuthbert.
Jack Cuthbert. Yeah.
Jack Cuthbert, mate. He is a handful, but more so than me. Like he has got in some scrapes, and Jack Cuthbert is bad.
You have to get us in with Michael Littman. We've been trying to get him on for a while, but he keeps ignoring my WhatsApps.
Mate,
You haven't abused him on Twitter in the past, have you, Dom?
Nah, not me, mate.
Right. Well, one final. Two more. Sorry. What is the worst initiation you've either done or seen?
Oh. That's a tasty one.
You can call the fifth on any of these. Obviously, I'm getting a bit fruity.
I mean, done never that bad for me. Like I did like. No, they're not bad. Nothing bad for me. Nothing bad that I would even waste time mentioning on here of like me. But like when we used to do the end of year Super Sunday, and we were allowed to do them at the club. So we did them with the players part of the club, and I used to organise them with a couple of the old lads. And we did this gauntlet once for the young lads, so like an initiation, but it was the end of year. And we would put Alcopop, usually something really flat like a Guinness or a bitter, on every line of the pitch. So you go off, and they'd race, and they'd go like WKD, Guinness, WKD, bitter, WKD, pint of water. And they'd have to neck them, and then they'd come back. And the whole thing was, if you lost, you got to do it again. So, and you're doing them on the way back as well. So
Jesus Christ,
you've got a WKD on the 22, and a Guinness on the 10, a water on the halfway, a WKD on the 10, a Guinness or a bitter on the 22, another one and then you come back as well. So it takes them like spewing up, but then on the, I shouldn't really be saying this, but when on the back there's this net at the back, they had to crawl under this net, and a few of the boys that were drunk were pissing on them in the net. that was like the, oh god, that was the like, what's that thing they call that thing in Argentina, that salt course they do?
Oh god, I know.
Like total wipeout.
Total wipeout, yes. That's what we called it. And we were like, and then the boys were like, we should get some hoses, and then the boys were like, no, we don't need hoses. And then one of the lads, like, obviously, like, Dave, I think it was David Ward, actually, the hooker from Quins. Remember Dave Ward?
Yeah.
He lost it again, and he was game over, man. Really, he was bad.
Oh dear, not good. Right, one final one from me. You wake up in a dark room. This is going to get a bit weird, but bear with me. Wake up in a dark room.
I like weird. I can do weird.
Excellent. It might not be weird enough. I don't know. I was told it wasn't weird enough. Wake up in a dark room. You hear a little squeaking from the corner, and it's that little scary fucker from Saw cycling in, saying, "Want to play a game?" On the table, you've got 20 pints of Guinness, 20 pints of lager, 20 vodka lime and sodas. I don't know why that was the first one that comes to my mind, and 50 Jaegers. You've got 2 hours to get through them, and you've got to pick 2 players to do it with. Who'd you choose?
I mean, based off what you've said, that just sounds like you just do that on your own, mate.
Oh yeah,
one man army.
Yeah.
There's a few. Andy Beattie, big back row from Bath. He can put on the piss. Another guy that is John Davis, Welsh centre.
Yeah.
He can tuck away some piss for a back.
For a back.
For a back. Andy Beattie and Jonathan Davis.
Yeah.
Strong.
Fox.
Fair play. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Ollie. Much appreciated for giving up your lockdown Friday night. And I imagine you'll be back on the virtual slash as soon as you get off this.
Mate, I think I have a few beers tonight for sure.
Fair play. Well, thanks again, and hope we can catch you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys. Have a good weekend.
Cheers.
You
Thanks,
too.
mate.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.